Well, welcome once more from Leicester in the UK. My name's Nigel. I'm the European President at the moment of God Squad, and I'm reflecting on Mark 8:22 to 26. Well, I've just got back from a trip to America, and it started a couple of weeks ago, and it started with my alarm going off fairly early in the morning. The curtains were shut, and I opened my eyes and couldn't see anything. So I got out of bed, wandered over to where the light was, and put the light on. But for that split second, it was darkness, and I was struggling to find my way around. Well, I managed to get up and get ready, and got onto the bike because I rode my bike down to the airport in Heathrow. And as I started riding, it wasn't too bad, and then I just got torrential rain. It just came down really heavily, and as the rain came down, because there was so much of it, I had my visor on, and it started to fog up the visor, and so when I was looking, I couldn't see the road, or I couldn't see an awful lot at all the way to Heathrow Airport. And in the end, I was just following these car lights. Really, I was hoping for the best, trying to keep watch on a car light in front of me. And I managed to do that. I managed to get to the airport, but it was like my vision wasn't great because of this misted up visor, and vision's so important. Well, I got the plane, and I went over to America. Got over to Michigan, and in Michigan the weather was brilliant. There was sunshine. It was really bright. Everything was lit up, and it was such a contrast from the ride to the airport, being in Michigan. And there we managed to ride, visit several clubs, and visit bikers, and do some mission, and also a few talks over there. So it was great. But the area could, because the sun was shining so brightly, the colours were great. It was brilliant riding weather. Well, again, vision is the topic of the passage I'm going to look at, and I'm going to read it. So they came to Bethsaida, and some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. Well, he took the blind man by the hand. He led him outside the village. And when he had spit on the man's eyes, put his hands on him, Jesus asked, "Do you see anything?" He looked up and said, "I see people. They look like trees walking around." Well, once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Then his eyes were opened, his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. And Jesus sent him home, saying, "Don't even go into the villages." Well, it's interesting. It's the analogy that I just gave it. It was similar, from that darkness, and then seeing, even looking at things that look like trees, really, and then seeing the whole world lit up, and the reality of it. Well, it almost makes me think when Jesus does that, when he spits on this man's eyes and then says, "What can you see?" Well, it sort of almost makes me think, well, if his eyes are covered in spit, it's going to see people looking like trees. But I'm sure that wasn't the reason for it. Well, Jesus spit on his eyes, and healed him, and he was able to see. He was restored. His sight was restored completely. Visions, really important. Our visions, one of the most important gifts that we've got. And we see here not only Jesus' compassion for this man, but the way Jesus treated him. And so Jesus took him by the hand, and it was important that Jesus used touch here. That he couldn't see him, so he had his hand. He trusted him. He took him outside, away from people, so it wasn't a matter of a spectacle going on. So this man, he gave dignity, and Jesus does that for us. He gives us dignity. He doesn't make a spectacle of us. And then he went out, and the symbolism that he used was spitting in his eyes, and that physical action accompanied this healing. And sometimes we have this same imagery, this same symbolism. We use water for baptism. We use communion wafers for celebrating Jesus' death for his resurrection. So we've got this symbolism, and Jesus almost used this symbolism, but he spit on his eyes. He made human contact, and Jesus often, when he healed people, he often touched them. There's another story in John of Jesus healing another blind man, and this was a different occasion. But this time he spat into the ground, and he made sort of mud from and put that on this man's eyes in the Gospel of John. And it was the same thing, this tactile expression, so this man could feel Jesus' touch on him, and he was healed. In the Greek, healing and salvation are the same word. Healing is part and parcel of salvation, and becoming saved, having salvation from Christ is almost a healing. Well, I remember when I first became a Christian, this same experience, this spiritual analogy of what Jesus did with this man, and I think that's a significant. It's not just the physical healing, but he would have had this spiritual healing, a restoration of his soul. And for me, when I first met Christ, it was initially I wasn't a Christian, but I sort of found out about Christianity a little bit from going to church. And my mum would take me to church and drag me there, and I didn't particularly enjoy it. But I found out a little bit about Christianity. I didn't find out a lot, and it was a real simplistic understanding. I didn't really know a lot about Jesus. But it's almost like that first initial contact when Jesus first put his hands on this man's eyes. His eyes were opened, but he didn't really grasp the world. He couldn't see properly. People looked like trees. The reality of the world wasn't there. And that's probably what it was like for me. And then it wasn't till I attended this Billy Graham meeting with my wife. She wanted me to go with her. And that's when really my eyes were opened spiritually, because the Billy Graham, it was great. He talked about repentance and forgiveness, and he talked about Jesus. And that's really when my life was transformed. And it was almost like this Jesus, the second time when Jesus laid his hands on this man. Spiritually, for me, it was almost like Jesus laying his hands on me. And things changed. The world was different. I could see in a different way. And for me, we got back to, we was at a holiday camp, and we got back there. And in the morning, we walked out, and the world was exactly the same. But it had changed, it had been transformed, and everything with colours, and all the surroundings were sort of technicoloured, and the world had changed, and it wasn't the world, but it was me, and it was Jesus had transformed me. So visions, really important. Visions affected by the way we receive it at times. The circuits in the mind sometimes for vision change things. We can see the same things, but our minds often change things. So we have some people suffer from colour blindness and can't see certain colours. The colours are there, but the brain's not allowing him to distinguish. For those of you who might have had a drink in the past and maybe drank too much, we sometimes have double vision, and this external thing that's affecting us, the alcohol there, but it makes us see double, see two things, because our mind is affecting our vision. And I think our spiritual awareness is also the same as it alters the way we see the world. It's from a spiritual perspective. And for me, I think this is what Jesus did there. He healed the man. The man could see clearly, but I think he also healed him spiritually. And for us, Jesus could do exactly the same thing. And for me, that changed my life, seeing things differently. So give it a go. Allow Jesus to change our perspectives, just as he did with this man, and bring some healing to us as well if we need it. But so we can see the world in this spiritual way. Cheers.